Welcome to Puck Academy, a show about how hockey players grow on and off the ice. I'm Jason Jacobs, the host, and each week I talk with players, coaches, and experts shaping the future of player development. Today's guest is Mel Ruzzi, head coach of women's ice hockey at Brown University. Mel's built a reputation as one of the top minds in the women's college game, known for her defensive systems, player development, and ability to elevate programs. She took over Brown in 2021, stepping into her first head coaching role and bringing a clear vision for building a competitive, high-character team. Before Brown, she also had a historic run at Princeton, helping the Tigers capture their first ever ECAC championship and record-setting season, and has also coached at Yale, Providence, Harvard, and Amherst. Beyond the college game, Mel's been deeply involved with USA Hockey for nearly 2 decades, working with national development camps and the U.S. under-18 women's national team. As a player, she captained Providence College, where she helped lead the team to a Hockey East championship and earned all-conference recognition. We have a great discussion in this episode about Mel's path in the game. Growing up in Minnesota, she didn't start playing until 8th grade, surprisingly, and ended up playing Division I hockey at Providence. We talked about what it was like having an older brother who played and having her dad as a coach. We talked about what it's been like coming up in the game and how the path has evolved for female players over the last several decades. And we also talked about the college game, Mel's philosophy on coaching, how it differs from some other coaches that she's seen, where she goes to for insight and guidance on coaching, and also what she looks for in recruits, what she's seen work and not work, and where she hopes the game will go directionally. It's a great discussion, and I hope you enjoy it. Mel Ruzzi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it is an honor to have you. As I mentioned to you before we started recording, I started the show because I was a hockey dad to a boy, and it was a lot of work to try to figure out his path, and a lot of other dads and parents that I knew had similar challenges. So a lot of it was kind of topics that were relevant to me on the boys' side. But as the show's evolving, I mean, really, I think it's moving towards taking a more holistic view of what's happening in the sport. And you can't take a holistic view of what's happening in the sport without also looking at, the girls and the women's side. And so you are the first guest that is specifically focused on the women's side of the game. And it's a doozy. You're like a renowned Division I head coach. So it's just such an honor to have you. And thank you for helping me break the ice here.
Yeah, hopefully I represent the women's side well.
No pressure, Coach Ruzzi. Yeah. So for starters, maybe just take me back. I know some of this because I listened to some other shows that you've been on, but talk a bit about your path into the game.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Minnesota, and so you're really blessed when you're in Minnesota, even today, that there are rinks in every town. I'm in my 40s, so grew up, could play on pond hockey in the backyard, and so I didn't actually play organized hockey until grade 8. My older brother Phil played, and my dad coached us and everything. So I think I kind of joined some practices with them, but never was on an organized team. And then, in 8th grade, stumbled upon a girls team in my town. So I tried out and made it, maybe because there weren't that many, so they took me. But I started playing organized hockey at that point. And then the next year played high school hockey at Burnsville, Minnesota, which is really cool. And had a legendary coach, Tom Osiki, who's a Minnesota Hockey Hall of Famer and fantastic human. And so that's sort of how I kind of got into it. Just, it's so accessible. It's so easy. And I know that for Minnesotans, they can attest to that. So blessed. You could never leave your state and play great hockey. And then was, really grateful to be able to have an opportunity to play in university and had a couple of great options and ended up going to Providence College out here in New England. And so that's sort of the first time I realized how big women's hockey was, or girls hockey was. People were from all over. I think I was one of 2 Minnesotans on the team. Everyone else was from kind of all over the place. And then I loved it. I had an amazing coach, Bob Duraney. Had an opportunity to play or work for him years later. But I think his philosophy aligned a lot with my dad as a coach. Just, really like fun and happy. And he had so much joy for not just the game, but for the team and for the people. And so I think that's sort of how between him and my dad, I think that's how I was like, okay, like, maybe coaching, but for sure involved in sport. And so when I graduated from PC, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but there was a great alum, Vicky Mosession, who was starting a youth organization in Walpole, Massachusetts. And she said, hey, could you help me out? You could work in the rink and then also kind of help me with the girls program. And so that's how I got involved with starting the Massachusetts Spitfires, which it's cool to see how much it's grown and where it is today. So I was there for a couple of years, and midway through my second year, I thought, maybe I want to work in sport, maybe pro sport, maybe college sport. And so I ended up applying to UMass Amherst to get my master's degree in sport management. And I had a nice in there because Coach Draney had gone to school there for that program. So he had written me a recommendation and helped to kind of make that path happen. And what's super funny about that is I went out there. There's always opportunities to be a GA or TA. And so I was going to pay for it by being a TA. And I really didn't want to do that. And so it was out of my character. I'm not like a super social person or comfortable just throwing myself outside the box, but I just so desperately wanted to do something better than being a TA that I ended up knocking on the door of the Amherst College coach, Jim Plumer. And I just, could I get involved? Could I volunteer? Could I do something? And the timing was amazing. He had just lost his assistant and said, we talked for a bit. He's incredibly smart. Jim's now the head coach at UVM and has done a great job there. But he kind of said, like, I think we can make this work, and you can be a GA, a graduate assistant, and I can pay you. And so gave me a huge salary of $8,000 a year. So it was awesome. And he fed me wings at the hangar. And that's how I survived grad school for 2 years to get my master's. And that sort of kind of kicked off my coaching career in the college ranks.
So I want to go all the way back to something you said right at the beginning, which is that you didn't start playing until, you said, 8th grade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with older brothers and with a dad, the older brothers that played and a dad who coached, how did you avoid playing earlier than that?
So my older brother was a year older and he played, but really, like, there wasn't girls hockey. I was like intensely into softball. At the time I probably maybe thought I'd play college softball. I wanted to play in the Big Ten. I wanted to be a catcher. I'm like 5'6", 130. So I don't know if I really fit the bill as a Big Ten catcher, but yeah, I loved softball. That was like my bread and butter. And I played all kinds of sports. I played basketball terribly. Again, I'm not a huge person. I played soccer as a goalie because I didn't like running. I played a little bit of everything, right? And it was never that my parents weren't pushing me in to play hockey. It was just I think I didn't really want to play boys hockey with boys. I wanted to hang out with my buddies, and that was my thing. I loved to be with all my friends. And so it wasn't until like discovering that there was a girls hockey team that I was, open to playing it organized.
I'm realizing, I was going to ask you, like, well, on the boys' side, like the pathway looks like this. And then on the girls' side, what does it look like? But there's another whole contrast here, which is I'm in New England and you grew up in Minnesota, right? And so the boys' pathway here doesn't necessarily look like the boys' pathway there, and the girls' pathway here doesn't necessarily look like the girls' pathway there. But for you, when you came in at the time, what did it look like in terms of the boys' pathway in Minnesota, and what did it look like in terms of the girls' pathway? And that stuff we're seeing now with, like, early professionalization and privatization and all of that, like, had any of that started in? And I can already hear Mike Snee saying, well, that's not even there today, right? So, yeah. But yeah, it'd just be great to kind of get the lay of the land of how it was when you started in the sport in 8th grade.
Yeah, it's almost not fair for me to have a sense or a discussion of the compare and contrast, because I think the men's side, the boys' side is super unique, and I don't really know enough about it. Like the pressure to play junior, and if you're in Minnesota, can you play high school hockey? Like there are guys coming out of Minnesota high school hockey to Division I, but I think that the guys are kind of split up and they're going everywhere. But if you talk about Minnesota, like Minnesota girls hockey has always been like stay in Minnesota. There's such a ton of great girls playing and programming, and back then, I mean, there wasn't year-round hockey. That wasn't the thing. I mean, it's funny. Maybe there was, like, we had this summer program called CODP, which is like, I think a spinoff of soccer. Soccer is like big for CODP. So you would skate with Jack Blatherwick, and like it was like all the best players from all over the state would come together, and somehow I got in the mix, and like you would train together and, overspeed training and some skills and off ice stuff. But it's not like now where there's their high school team and they have their summer team and then they have their fall team. And then it wasn't like that. So my path was literally like play high school hockey. Didn't really know that college hockey kind of existed much. When I played, one of the teams that recruited me was Wisconsin, and they didn't have a team yet. My freshman year would have been the first year of having a team. So, I mean, I know I'm dating myself, but I mean, the sport has, really exploded.
Well, especially on the girls' side. Hey, it's exploded on both, but it seems like the girls' side, like percentage-wise, what it was to now, I don't know the numbers, but like you can just just look around, right? It's like the girls' side, all of a sudden, it's like it's everywhere, and the girls are so good, right? We're like growing up, it was like maybe there were one or two girls on the boys' team, and that was it.
And that's it. And like even high school hockey back then, Burnsville was like a pioneering program. It wasn't like it is now where there's so many high schools. There's, AAA, AA, whatever it is. Like it's much, much bigger now. And you're right. Like, the skill set that I had, I would never even touch the ice in any college hockey, maybe club. Like the women now, like they all can do everything, the way they shoot the puck, the way they skate. It's different. So it's hard for me to look back and think about that as the path. My path is just, I played probably a small sample size. Coach came to watch me in the state tournament because we were a pretty good team. Said, she looks like she's decent. I played forward, and then I became a D at some point. And then I went to college and I was a D. Like it was a different time.
And growing up with a dad who was a coach, what was the philosophy in your household as it related to sport, and how much of it was about being in the moment versus having goals, for example?
Okay, my dad was my hockey coach. My dad was like my coach of fun. Like my teammates loved my dad because it was like fun. We didn't go home and like break down the game and watch film and like, that wasn't what, and I think that's who I am now. Like, yes, there's certainly a seriousness to what we do and training athletes, but it really like it was and is a game. And so it was about building confidence. It was about being yourself. It was about taking chances. Like that was my coaching from my dad and from my mom too. My mom's not like into sports. I would say she probably is a pretty good athlete because she's strong. I think I probably get my body type more from her than my dad. But yeah, it wasn't. I think the only pressure I ever felt was from myself. Like I was a very intense, like wanted to be perfect, but it was never like my dad saying like, do this, do that. Like that wasn't it.
When you look at the girls coming up who evolve into, the strongest women players, how much of it is kind of that? I've heard you say in the past, for example, that you're a fierce competitor. How much of it is being a competitor in the moment, and how much of it is more about like goals, discipline, a plan, structure, sacrifice? Does it have to be that way? Is it detrimental for it to be that way? Like, is living in the moment and just keeping it fun the way to go? Like, are there any patterns? Is every case different? Like, just kind of riff on that.
Yeah, I think when I think about being a competitor, I think, and maybe my teams will say this too, it's like, it's the Monday through Thursday. I want practice, for instance, to be so efficient and everything with purpose. And I want to see like what happens on Monday turn into like Tuesday and how it grows. And like that, like when it's to me, it's like it is the plan, it's the process, but it's like, how good can you be? Like, how good can you be? And then Friday and Saturday is like, it's test day. But for me, like, maybe it's not exactly to sit back and watch and enjoy, but it kind of is. Like, if I'm still teaching them what the forecheck is on Friday in a game, then I really, really didn't do my job. Like, we're not prepared, right? And so when I think about competitiveness as a coach, like, my time to really compete is at practice. It's, can I instill values? Can I build an identity of our team? Can I get us to think the game in a way that when the situation changes, they've got tools in their tool belt and they've got some ideas in their mind to play as a team? Yes, I get mad at officials, like every coach, maybe more so than some coaches, but you're not going to watch me screaming and yelling on the bench in my games oftentimes. Like, it's just, I don't think that's where the competitive nature comes out. It comes out in the Monday through Thursday.
And generally, if you look at who's progressing in the game on the women's side, are there key attributes, whether it be size or speed or IQ or grit or compete level or any of that? And how has that been evolving over your time in the game? And similarly, it'd just be great to understand what you look for relative to the pack.
I think talking about some of the best players that I've ever been around, whether it's someone I've, coached against or coached on our teams, yes, there's tools, right? And, speed, skating, like edge work, strength, scoring ability, all of those things. But I think you talked about it. The women's game has grown so much that to the point where, and maybe someone will challenge me on this, I almost wonder if you let the Olympic coach pick their team, and then you let somebody else pick whoever's left after they pick that team, and you did that in US and Canada, I think it'd be a pretty good 4-team tournament, and that it could be like, in a 3-game series, you might see some splits happening there. Like, that's how much talent I think we have in North America in particular. So what's the separator? It's passion. Like I just said, like my dad didn't force me to do this, and like, now you better work on your quick feet, and now go work on your shot, and now go. If players need that, they're not going to make it. There has to be some, like, and not just internal motivation. You must love it. And I that's something that if you ask my players, I'm going to talk about it all the time. Why is my general focus on our team atmosphere as being happiness? Is because if you don't love coming to the rink and the people you're doing it with, you're not going to be very good. Like, at the end of the day, you can do some things, score some goals, win some games, but like, you're not going to be great if you don't love what you're doing.
Yeah, I think, at least on the boys' side, it seems like that's something that a lot of parents really wrestle with, in the sense that as the landscape gets harder, the rule changes, and growth in the sport at the youth level rising relative to the spots for in college and stuff like that. It's all right, if my kid wants to have a chance, and if they want to have a chance, they need to work harder and they need to dial it in more, but they might not necessarily have the tools at whatever age they are, right? And so I need to help, but then all the things you do to help strip the joy out of the game. And if you don't retain the joy for the game, then you're not going to make it anyways, right? So it's kind of like you don't know if you really have someone until you set them free. Yeah, it's super confusing to navigate, because you want your kid to have every opportunity, but at the same time, like, they've got to want it, and so you want to, like, sit back and let them want it, but like, you don't want to have a situation like what I found myself in as a college player, which is that, I didn't realize the opportunity I had, and now I look back in hindsight with regret, right? And so, yeah, I don't know what advice you have for parents out there trying to navigate that tension, because it's pretty tricky.
I have zero advice for parents because I have a 2-year-old and I have a month-and-a-half-old, right? So I'm not in any position to offer parents, but I will say that I empathize with parents. I don't doubt for a second that parents love their kids, right? So like what you're wrestling with is, I think, what most parents wrestle with. And I think what I've heard and read and seen, even through my older brother, who, has one of my nieces is a fantastic goaltender, like, entering her recruiting process. Like, there's so much pressure of what team do you go on? What camps do you sign up for? Like, do I make USA Hockey this or that? And as a parent, all you're hearing is in the stands of parents talking about all the things they're doing and what they paid for. And I don't have advice. I empathize with it. I'm not looking forward to it. I hope my kids love some sports of some kind. I know we're going to make them play some team sports to learn how to be good teammates and good friends, but it's really, really hard, because I wish I could say that in this day and age, that if you want to if your end goal is to sort of get opportunities, there are things that you do have to do. Like, I would love to say, Joachim Flieg is one of my assistants and a very good friend, and was a head coach at Yale before leaving and ending up here with me, luckily. And he's from Sweden, and he talks about a lot of it in Europe. And, they don't keep score until a certain age. You're not allowed to travel outside of your town to play. There's no such thing as travel when you're 8 years old. There might be something really to that, right? Like, North America youth sports in general, I've heard people say this, it's completely broken. It's a business. But am I contributing to the business? Yeah. I'm a college hockey coach who goes and scouts events. Like, so it is, I wrestle with this too. It's like, what are we willing to support And it's something that our national coaching body has been talking about too, is how can we be the solution versus contributing to the problem? Because we've seen it, and you ask any women's college coach, and maybe it's true on the men's side as well. You could go to 6 events between June 1st and July 30th, and you're going to see some kids all 6 times, just chasing it. And it's really hard. Like I really, like I said, I empathize with families, because you don't want to take your son or daughter out of an opportunity by choosing the wrong thing or not choosing something. But also, like, at what point does it become just another event? And then there goes any kind of love or passion for it.
Exactly. And I mean, I don't have answers either. And I mean, it's one of the reasons, even though I was telling you before the show that I've decided not to try to build a company or have a livelihood in this category, I'll go do something else. Like, I want to keep the show going because I still love the game, and I'm still not happy with the state at the youth level. And I don't have answers for what a better way is, but I'm going to keep trying to sort through it. And
I think, Jason, what helps it a little bit is it's very interesting. And this is a little bit of like being a woman in the women's game, right? I remember, and I don't want to call anything out necessarily, but I remember being at an event, call it a speaking engagement conference, and someone was coming to speak to a group of people coaching the women's game, not necessarily all women, but who coach the women's game, right? And what women understand is people. We're coaching people. I think that's what people who coach in our game, for the most part, who do really well, like, we understand we're coaching human beings. And we're not coaching X's and O's necessarily all the time. And they brought in a speaker from the boys' side, and highly accomplished coach, teaching us about how happiness and joy of the game, and we should be asking players what they like to do and getting to know their families. And we're all sitting there going like, yeah, right. And I bring this up because it's funny that about, I would say 8-9 years ago, you started to hear NHL coaches talking about this. Like, I got to make sure that I'm checking in with my players as just men, and what's happening with their families and their wives and their kids. And I need to make sure that I recognize that they're people. And so we sometimes need the NHL, who is the pinnacle for the men, for that to trickle down. Now, I don't think it's fully trickled down yet to U10, U8 boys hockey, because I still hear that dads are cursing at kids and yelling at them. And you see these crazy things on social media, but I believe it will trickle down. I do. I believe it will trickle down. And I think that on the women's side, we're a little bit more progressive in that way. I am not saying that every women's program or girls' youth program is perfect, but at least that part is sort of like something that's become popular, that we are going to coach people versus coaching just a sport.
And one thing I heard you say on the other podcast that you're on, that I listened to, or one of them, is that on at least the players that you work with, they tend to be, it's like their discipline and their focus and their drive athletically carries over into all aspects of their lives, including in the classroom. Like, when I was growing up playing the sport, that wasn't true on the boys' side at all, including me. I mean, I was the furthest thing from a strong student. But I know with my kids, and I have one son and one daughter, I very much want them to be strong students and strong athletes, and take the same discipline that they're applying in sports and apply it across all aspects of their life, including in the classroom and professionally one day. But I'll tell you, with the academies and with the tournaments that you have to miss school for, like, increasingly it feels like they're at odds. So how can we do a better job as parents of coming out on the side that it sounds like your players are on?
You're right. It's so funny. Like, it occurred to me, it occurs to me every spring, because spring is a busy time for recruiting, that, like, I'm hustling out to an event that starts on Thursday night and all day Friday. And I'm like, when do they go to school? Like, it's like Friday is like school optional. Like, I don't quite understand. I don't have a solution, but I'll tell you what, if you look at a university schedule, and this is definitely hockey. I think basketball is really different. Maybe it's a different animal, but like, most hockey teams play their games Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday. And that's men and women. You don't see a lot of like midweek games week after week. Like, you might have a few throughout your season. So isn't it interesting that our students at the college level are able to go to class, but our high school kids can't? Like, isn't it interesting that's like the way the scheduling works? And now I've been in the Ivy world for so long that maybe I have rose-colored glasses, but like I will tell you, like I think it's got to be really hard for students to get their work done if they're missing class, 2 days a week. Like, I don't know how you do it. And so for me, I like selfishly, I want to stop this because we need as many admissible Ivy students as we can to recruit over and over again. Like, it is worrisome. Hockey academies, I don't have an issue with hockey academies as long as they're also like there's an educational component, like a real educational component. Because what I think sometimes is scary is that you make a decision about, you talked about with your son, right? What kind of decision do I make? Do I make a decision that's hockey forward and that I'm willing to compromise at school? Do I make a decision that's school forward that I might compromise hockey? Like, can I find something that's holistic? Well, the dream is holistic. I wonder if there's enough of holistic left. I mean, the hockey academy world has exploded, and it seems like people are so drawn to it now, but at what cost? When I think about, and I don't remember a lot because I'm older and I forget high school, but like when you look back as an adult and you think about like your experiences, you do not remember the games. At least I don't. I don't remember the games and the scores and this play or that play. I remember like my friends and my environment and like for hockey, the locker room. But like beyond that, like I had friends on the basketball team and there was prom and there like the academy experience steals a little bit, maybe a lot of that, depending on the academy setup. Like they don't have that. And I don't know, like should young people not have that whole experience? I don't know. I'm not, like I said, I'm a parent of a 1 or a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old. So I don't know.
On the boys' side, it seems like the pathway is evolving a lot with the rule changes with the Canadian major juniors and with the portal and with NIL, and there's talk that that the prep schools might actually get younger, and this trend of reclassing might alleviate a little bit as more kids aren't finishing prep and are going to juniors earlier. What are you seeing on the girls' side? What does the pathway look like, and how has it been evolving?
Everything's changing so quickly. I don't have the bandwidth to sort of guess what's coming next. And a little bit again, I'm gonna preface this. If you talk to a coach from, Penn State, right? I'll give that as an example. They're in a different world than I'm in at Brown University or any of us Ivies, right? Like I think it's different, right? For some reasons there, but I think that a lot of legislation is changing and evolving, and legislation that the NCAA is instituting is going to greatly impact decisions that kids made 4 years ago that were not even in the NCAA. And I think that's scary. Like there was, hot off the presses, there was a proposal this morning that was released that something to the effect of opening up the 5-year eligibility, but that timeline begins the day you turn 19, the year you turn 19. So for instance, as a New Englander, and like I said, I went to public high school. I've never really grasped like boarding school, prep school. But a lot of students out here in New England, they PG or they repeat. Like, so now they made a decision maybe 2 years ago. And if this rule passed, they kind of put themselves behind the 8 ball already. You know what I mean? Like, I can't guess. I can't guess what's going to happen. And I'm not saying this proposal is or isn't going to go through. It's just there's so much to grapple with in the legislation and in the sports world.
And so, without being a futurist, if you just look at the here and now and the reality that you're living, what are the ponds that you fish in when you're trying to recruit for Brown?
You have to play at the highest level. So what does that mean? We talked about Minnesota. It's fairly easy. Those women, they will get recruited. And if they're not on the premier high school team, which, by the way, in Minnesota, they don't actually play for their town anymore. It seems that they all move addresses or go to whatever it is they do, which is, hey, to each their own, right? So there is that, putting yourself in a position to be in whatever program it is. So, but Minnesota is fairly easy. I mean, they have opportunity everywhere. And then they have a elite league type season that, you probably need to put yourself into or other, spring or summer seasons that you can get evaluated as well. So I think that's the easiest pocket. The other really super easy pocket is Ontario. Ontario has a really, really deep league. I think it's the OWHL U22, which is funny they call it U22 because they're still like mostly like under the age of 19. But those are like heavily recruited. They're not traveling all over the world to play hockey. Like you could never leave Ontario. Coach will come to you and you'll get found. What's really hard is we're trying to keep growing the game. But if you live in California, even though there's some teams in California, you are being recruited as an 8th grader to go play for a hockey academy or whatever it is, right? And it's hard because if you stay home and other people leave, you are left with no one to play with, right? So those pockets, I use California because probably the biggest market. They probably could just stay home, but they don't, and then they get spliced up. But there are plenty of markets very hard to stay home. You have to move away from home as a young kid to play high level hockey as a high schooler. Maybe it's grade 9. So I think that is the trend outside of those hot hockey areas. Where do I see it going? I think right now the hockey academies are driving it. And so it's still going to keep pulling these young women into, elite, premier, whatever they want to call them, programs, moving away from home. I think that's sort of what it looks like right now. I mean, like I said, I really believe in our coaching body in the NCAA, Division III and Division I, that we will work to find a way to support not necessarily keeping kids home. I don't think we can control that, but I think we can maybe tap down on some of this recruiting that happens so you're not having to go to every single event and spend millions of dollars. I think we can come to a point where we're making that better. I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow, but I think there's an appetite for that. And I think if we stop going to these events, players don't feel the need to be there. So I think there's some things that we can do to help it. And I'm optimistic. I think there's a lot of people in our game, in the college game, who have now had kids of their own. And they're like, oh man, we might be part of the problem here. And I think that's something that I'm excited about, what we might do as a coaching body to even make marginal change there to help families out a little bit.
I mean, you talked about certain areas that are, where the game is played at the highest level and fishing in those ponds. So when you're in those ponds and the ice is, full of girls that are playing at that level, what are you looking for? And what are the things that they have to have coming in and that you view as innate? And what are the things that it's like, oh, if they don't have it, it's okay because I can teach those things?
Jason, it's evolving. I mean, the easy answer is skating and compete. That's an easy answer. But there are players out there that maybe they don't skate that well, or at least it appears that they don't look like great skaters, but they get around just fine. And why do they do that? Because they're so smart. So I think, it is really easy, and I'm not trying to sandbag, but it's really easy to recruit when you're just picking off the top. I think for everyone else, you really have to dig deep and to see, once you've watched on the surface who's got some talent and has some of those pieces, I think passion, compete, skating, puck skills, IQ, making reads. I think those are things all really important. We certainly are watching for some character things. I think women are really smart. I don't think we see a lot of people with poor character displayed out there, but you don't want to have that in your program. But once you get past that, then you got to drive in deeper. And I don't think there's a perfect way to do this, but are they going to love hockey 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now? Is that truly our priority, or is it all just to get here? And that is very tricky. And it's not because people are being disingenuous. I just think that we are recruiting 15, 16, 17-year-olds. I don't, they're young. How are they supposed to know what they're going to feel like when they're 20 and they've got every opportunity around them and maybe they don't love it?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but without the scholarship dollars for athletics, there's less repercussions to quit, right?
Yes. Maybe I've been really fortunate that we've hit the right people. We've had some that have left the game, but I don't think, I think I don't think it has anything to do with scholarship. If I'm holding a kid on a hockey team because I'm hanging a scholarship over the head, that's not the right kid anyway, right? We go back to passion, right? And I know some coaches in the scholarship side of it, even when I was working at Providence College, yeah, you sometimes feel that like, are they just here so they don't have to pay for school? Because there's some rules around taking a scholarship away. I think there's some kids that just play because they've always played and maybe they feel bad for their parents if they don't play. Like, that's what I mean. Like, digging deep, like, do you really want to put this much effort into it? It is not easy to be a Division I hockey player. Like, they're committing so much time and effort. And then, we tell them all the time, then you also have to take care of your sleep and your nutrition. And like, they have 2 full-time jobs. They're student and athlete. Like, so they have to love it. Scholarship, non-scholarship, whatever it is, like, it's a huge commitment. And I don't mean to even say Division I. Division III, huge commitment. Like, it's a lot to play college hockey.
Are you seeing similar trends to the boys' side in terms of agents and advisors getting involved, or is that not happening as much?
I think we're seeing it more and more. I will not for a second say it's even close to what the men are faced with. Because I think what's happening on the men's side is tampering with the transfer portal. And I know the NCAA just passed some rules there to try to hinder some of this tampering and moving players around and NHL and all this stuff. So it's not nearly that level. But someone said to me recently, like, look out, everything's 5 years behind for the women. Like, it's coming. So I don't know. I always go back to, I can admit that I am at times naive. I at times live in a little bit of my bubble that I'm in. But I also, I'm aware that these things, they're always coming in cycles.
Back to IQ, I've heard you say before that you like the video. How do you use the video, and can IQ be taught?
I think that IQ can be taught. I think some of the best players are those people who watch hockey and not necessarily just watching their own game. I'm a believer, and this is not my idea. Many coaches have said it, and I'm just repeating it, that hockey is just a game of patterns. And there is like this idea of mental reps can kind of certainly help you in your game. And so I think film, yes, breaking down our own film is really important for our team to get on the same page systematically. It's almost like forcing those mental reps. And so I definitely use it for all sorts of elements of our game. We use it to break down our opponent and pre-scouts and showing some trends there that we can perhaps exploit. But I think for young players, like watching hockey, not watching YouTube highlights, but like actually watching a period of hockey and picking a player, I think those are mental reps for sure. And like, how amazing that we have the PWHL now. Like, now our women can watch our game of, like it's just, and it's amazing. I was watching a game last night. I think it was, I watch a lot of Boston Fleet because they were on Nesson.
I've not been, but I'm in Boston. I live in Brookline, and I hear that those games are a lot of fun and really, really well done. It's like a great experience. In addition to being great hockey, it's a great experience.
Yeah, and I have a former player in the Fleet, Shea Maloney, who she's now playing on their top line and power play, and she's doing great for them. But like it's a cool game. It's a cool game to watch, and there's a lot to be learning from that, because that's it's the top of the pyramid. Like the Olympics were remarkable. Like the Olympics this year were outstanding. Our Division I national championship game was amazing. I don't know how if you saw it, but that Wisconsin Ohio State game was amazing hockey. Like I would say those teams could be in the PWHL. Like they're pretty stacked anyways. But like there's a really good hockey out there that we can watch for the women. NHL is hard to watch for women because I'm just gonna state the obvious. Like they're just bigger, stronger. Like it's a different game, right? They can do some things. Like I was just talking to a goalie today about the fact that like they make these seam passes that are going 100 miles an hour that the guy can turn around at a one-timer without question and hit the top shelf. And it's like, I'm like, how do the goalies make any saves, right? But the goalies are also quick, right? And some of our women are now doing those things, but their game is different still. It's still a different game. Our PWHL game is very much what our game is. A little bit more physical, but I wouldn't call it good physical. I'm not personally like a fan of some of the things that I think should just be called interference. But I think it's incredibly skilled, so fast. I think there's really good coaching. It's a fun game to watch.
It'd be great to dig a little bit into your coaching philosophy, how you go about operating as a coach today, but also how that's different from when you started coaching so many years ago.
Like today, and I think today is really like a 2-year-old today, because what I mean by that is when I first got here to Brown, I was taking over a program that we were trying to develop and push and get to the next level. And so I really was a chameleon in coaching in some ways to kind of raise our level and get us to where we needed to be. And, I think probably, last season was like where we really started to dial into being a team of identity and having really much a process focus on like playing to our game and having a more and more clear sense from a player to player standpoint what that means. I mean, this year I think we took another step forward in terms of playing to an identity. And then, even our postseason meetings with our returning players, talking about their individual contributions to that identity and what they can do in their games based on the skill sets they already have, that they can kind of create like a really good foundational, controllable. Jada Gimlin on our team used to always say, your B game, like your average, like what can you do every single day? And then I think we dug into that a little bit in this off season, so the players can just be focused and dialed in on their training this off season and know sort of what their expectation is and what kind of role they're going to fill. So for me, I think like from a building stylistic, like I want a fan of our team to be able to say like, yep, this is their identity. I want them to walk in the rink, watch and say like, yep, I see exactly what it is. And it doesn't change from game to game. I think where does that come from? I think I'm a type A personality. Like I wouldn't, I used to call myself a bit of a control freak. I'm not actually. I learned that about myself, that there's very little I care to control. I don't care what the players wear, except for at lift. I want them to match at lift. But I love having really genuine, unique locker room with all kinds of women in it. I think there's a lot of different ways to score goals and things like that. But I think from a structural standpoint, I'm type A in that sense that like, this is how I want us to defend. This is how I want us to look. This is our purpose in this situation. And I think that comes from like, I think we're a team that will always be successful because we are 6 players on the ice playing together. Like, I don't think we're a team that we're just going to have one superstar that we're going to send the puck out to and have them go score a goal. Like, I think we're a full team playing together.
What about the balance of structure versus creativity or habits versus systems?
I think that creativity is, to me, when we have the puck. And that doesn't mean it's a free-for-all. I think that a team can use their creativity if they have some expected like release points and like some different things that we're looking for as a collective. I think creativity without any sort of structure turns into one-on-one hockey. And that's not what we want to play. We want to play as offensively as a 5-player unit. But I think there's a chance there's a lot of different options that they can read off of. The structure, the system is when we don't have it. How we forecheck, how we reload, how we defend. I'm not happy with our neutral zone. We got to keep getting better. It's my coaching and I got to get better. But like, yeah, like when we don't have it, that's when I think that it's structure, it's being on the same page and having a role and a job. The habits, the details, like I think again, that's the same thing to me. I think when we don't have the puck, we need to have some team habits. We're a big team that thrives on leading with our sticks, getting sticks on pucks, disrupt. So I think if you're F1 and you just decide your own way where you're gonna like mirror and kind of float around, that's really hard for F2 to operate. We have to know what F1's doing, stick extended, get in there, disrupt pucks so we can be aggressive and be an F2, right? When we have the puck, yeah, I think there's absolutely an element for creativity because everyone's filling spots and being options off of that creative player who, hey, I'm a drive wide, get to the post type kid. I'm a pull up, control skate, find second wave or change of speed. Like that's all really appreciated because that's how you create offense. If we played we've played against teams that they're really easy to play against because we know exactly what they're going to do. Like we net drive and then we look for the seam and okay, this is how we're going to defend it. I think we have to allow our players just to have some creativity and fun and free wheel a little bit offensively so we're not easy to play against.
Are you seeing things like the portal or NIL infiltrate in the women's game?
If you look at, we're just nearing the close of the portal now. I didn't think so this year. I didn't think so. A year ago, I wondered. There were some interesting things happening a year ago. This year, no. I like where the portal's at. I serve on the Women's Division I committee. So we had a vote to change the transfer portal that was an immediate impact change. So it opened up, the Monday after the national championship, and it's a smaller window, tighter window. It used to be much, much longer. So I like the structure of it now. There's also a new transfer window that once a new coach is hired, those players have an opportunity to enter the portal if they feel like it's not a good fit. Because I think what we're really getting down to is, you go back to doing things the right way, right? I think the way the portal operates now, assuming everyone's, there's no tampering, whatever, hopefully it makes sure that if players made the wrong decision, they can find a way to correct it, right? That is, again, I once again, naive Mel, but that's how I choose to see things. I choose to see, I don't want to make rules or support rules to try to weed out bad apples. I think that the transfer portal should be an opportunity for you to correct mistakes. I mean, there's plenty of players that get recruited and then they never touch the ice and there's no intention to get there. Like, man, you said it, you regretted leaving playing hockey, right? I don't think there's players that want to feel like they're going to join a roster and get buried and there's never an intention of ever playing. Then by all means, try to go somewhere else and so you can have that opportunity. So I think that sometimes we form rules around bad apples, and I don't think that's good either.
So you mentioned on the show I listened to you come on from a few years ago, you were talking about how you really valued self-improvement and that as a coach, the higher the level you climb, the harder it is to find mentors. Where are you at today in terms of how do you foster that continued self-improvement since you were already at a high level then and presumably you've achieved even more mastery today?
I think it's still really hard to find mentors in our own game in women's hockey because it still remains very, very small. I'm really lucky within our own coaching staff that Joachim was a head coach at Yale. We worked together at Harvard. He's seen it all, right? And so I have a mentor right next door. And I think Beth Hanrahan, who's actually just left town, she's coaching Worlds for Great Britain and growing her career and serving in a head coaching role there. And she's someone who loves hockey and is watching film and grabbing things off of Instagram. And she's another person that can open my mind as well and challenge. And I think because our staff, Beth and I have been together for a long time. I've known UK for a very, very long time. So I think there's hopefully a comfort level where there is no head coach, yes, I have to make the decisions and I got to be sometimes the bad guy. But I think we've got a bunch of really good ideas in the room. And so that that's been refreshing for sure to have that.
When you look to the future, what do you wish in terms of the future of the women's game? And because I always seem to ask my questions in twos, if there was something that you could change that would most impact the women's game in a better direction, what would it be and why?
I think that I wish women would think a little bit more like men. And what I mean by that is men want to be the guy on a team. And so that's why I think you always see, and I think that's going backwards now because of NIL and money, but there are different programs that pop off because guys are want to be the guy and that team gets better, right? We have had 4 straight years of Wisconsin play Ohio State in the national title. Why is that? It seems like all the Olympians go to those 2 teams, right? I would, and they have people on those teams that don't even touch the ice that could be great players elsewhere, right? And I'm not picking on those 2 programs. I'm just using that as it's been the same top teams for a long, long time. And other people pop in, we popped in national rankings, but I want women to be the woman. I want them to go to a program and be yeah, I believe in myself. And I think I credit my graduating class this year. And Galley's included that too, but Galley transferred to us. But Janet Ginla, India McDaddy, and Ellie Gaban, they came here and they changed Brown. They will forever be a part of Brown hockey and names that are talked about because of what they did here, right? I want more women to do that they aren't just going to the same school to join their buddy who's already there and they know it's going to be easy and they're going to win every game. And I think that's something I'd like to see happen. I'd also like to see the PWHL have incredible success. I think that I probably can do a better job of like physically supporting and getting the games. I'm sort of a little tied down with the kids, but like I think we need that league, and we should all want that league to have incredible success because I think we need to keep attracting great athletes to our sport. The danger that we have in hockey is it's so expensive. And I think that can be a major barrier. And so I think we want the PWHL to be super successful, to have women's hockey in front of young girls, and that when they're choosing between, hate to say it, sorry, soccer, sorry, I want to take the best athletes and put them in our sport, and that'll continue to grow. Because I say this to people, the reason I think I'm good friends with our field hockey coach at Brown, and I maybe mentioned this the other day, like when it comes down to it, like she might be like, oh, are you recruiting this kid? Like she's a really good field hockey kid. And I'm like, well, she'll choose hockey. Why will they always choose hockey at the end of the day? There is something like uniquely special about the locker room. Like there's something uniquely special about being a hockey player, particularly a women's hockey player. And so I think if we can just keep grabbing the best athletes, like I think that makes our sport grow so much.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show and having such a wide-ranging discussion. I've learned a lot. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wish I did, or any parting words you'd like to leave with listeners?
Maybe not missing anything, but I think you hit on it. And I think that, like hockey has to be fun. And I hope, that when my son and daughter get to the point where they're playing youth hockey, that their coach realizes that their number one job is to have fun and instill confidence. I think if this show can sort of like, knowing that that's sort of what you're looking at, like, oh man, like how can we make youth hockey even better too? And like, I think if people can understand that that's actually going to make players better. I think that's something that is a message that I'd love for you to keep carrying on, and highlighting those coaches that do a great job. There's plenty of great youth coaches that maybe they win a ton, maybe they don't, but their players love hockey and they want to play all day, every day. There's something that should be said for those coaches.
I mean, that is the thing that I am wrestling with on the show is, like, does steel sharpen steel, or should you be in a big fish in a little pond? And is it about joy and love, or is it about like sacrifice and suffering? Right. And yeah, I mean, there is a tension there, but to your point, if you don't retain the joy, like you're not going to make it no matter what else you do. And even if you make it for a period of time, it's not going to end well.
I mean, and I don't want to belong to, but like, they're not mutually exclusive. Like joy and challenging young people are not mutually exclusive. Like, I think I go back to my dad. Like, it wasn't like he was like, we were out picking dandelions in the grass at the softball field. No, like, but because like we felt like our coach was confident in us and was like, believing we could do some things, then he could challenge us. And then it was fun because we saw that we could do new things. Like it's hard work to be a coach. It's hard work to be a coach, but like, man, like you can change people's lives. You can also change them in a really bad way. So let's not do that. Let's change them in a really positive way.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Best of luck to you and to Brown in the upcoming season. And I can't wait to watch.
Thanks, Jason. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks for listening to Puck Academy. If you enjoyed this episode, follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast and share it with someone serious about their game. See you next week.